Don't let them fool you by gaslighting you. Telling the black liberating truth is not being racist towards Caucasians. Those who know the black liberating truth must teach it. Throughout history, the Caucasians have demonstrated an entrenched predisposition for profound racism that is matched only by their proclivity for deceit, greed, and hunger for power. Their subjugation, murder, and exploitation of all other races are unparalleled. While labeling all other races as being savages, the Caucasians have in fact been the most brutally savage throughout history. Millions of black people have been misled to believe that Caucasians have fundamentally changed from the people they've demonstrated themselves as being throughout history. However, the fact that their narcissistic personality disorder prevents them from acknowledging the severity of the atrocity they've inflicted upon black people throughout history is proof that they haven't changed. Rather than accepting responsibility for their evil actions, they instead marginalizes the African Holocaust and tells us to get over it. Whenever a people fails to acknowledge their wrong, evil past deeds, it's always because they haven't been transformed from them. They haven't changed, and they're still deploying evil racist tactics against black people. However, they are now deployed with much more sophistication and are therefore not easily recognized nor easily comprehended by their black victims. Because they keep our collective minds distracted and dumbed down by a biblical fairy tale and a silly slave syndrome myth, we are therefore easy victims of the sophisticated and covert racist tactics that it presently deploys against us. White oppressive forces are waging an insidious covert war against black people that most don't understand. White racism towards black people always prevails best when the black victims don't understand the tactics that are being deployed. Therefore, those who know must teach. African proverb. The core problem confronting black people is that millions of us have been made to forget that all information that we receive that shapes our perception of ourselves, as well as that shapes our worldview, comes exclusively from the group of people that have proven themselves as being the most notoriously deceitful, our worst enemies throughout history. These same group of people also currently controls our media images. They brainwash millions of black people to forget these noted important facts and to instead blindly perceive the white society as being the authority of all what's true, in spite of their notoriously deceitful history of the contrary. Whenever a people that possess the type of history as Caucasians does are the ones controlling all information that we receive and our media image, they will always exploit this scenario in ways that serve their hidden evil agendas against us. It's the people they inherently are, it's the way they've always been, and it's the only way they know how to be. Because the white society writes all black narratives and controls all black mainstream media images, they therefore literally owns our interpretation of ourselves. They've weaponized this scenario against black people to negatively shape our minds and cultures in ways that serve their hidden nefarious agendas against us. More specifically, they falsely negatively distort our narratives and media images in order to condition us to perceive ourselves through a false, inherent, inferior identity that aids them in maintaining their social dominance over us. Through this nefarious social engineering process, they've literally socialized us to believe the unbelievable, to normalize the abnormal, to accept the unacceptable, and to defend the indefensible. It's the true reason why many black people now self-identifies as niggers, thugs, bitches, and hoes, sags their pants, glorifies pimps, and insists that it's ourselves that are our worst enemies, in spite of insurmountable evidence proving that white oppressive forces are in fact our worst enemies. It's also why millions of us now praise to the false god of the ungodly enslavers. We literally get our morals from a book written by a people that have proven that they have no moral compass regarding us. They've literally socially engineered millions of us to think in ways that literally insults our own intelligence. And we've so normalized our upside down mindset that telling the truth about what they've done to us now literally offends millions of black people. This is all possible because regardless of how intelligent people are, if it's possible to control the information and media image that they receive, it's entirely possible to control what they'll believe. It's also possible to steer them towards an implied objective. Because we African Americans were stripped of our true identity and culture during the enslavement of our ancestors, we are therefore more susceptible to being socially engineered in ways that are against our own interests. This is not some silly conspiracy theory, nor is it a feeble attempt at scapegoating to falsely absolve ourselves of our own responsibilities by wrongly blaming white people, as so many have been programmed to respond. It's the absolute truth. Two proven social science facts are that people function based upon the information that they receive, and that a group's identity is shaped by how they see themselves repeatedly depicted within the media. People become those media depictions of themselves that they accept as being their reality. Because white oppressive forces control the information that we receive and they control our media images, they weaponize this scenario against black people. They've in fact transformed this scenario into their greatest weapon used against black people. Most people naively believe that the media reflects our reality, but in truth, it's more often we that imitate what we see and learn from the media. A group's identity is shaped by how they repeatedly see themselves depicted in the media. People often become those derogatory media depictions of themselves that they've accepted as being their reality. It's a true social science known as media social engineering. Those who control the people's media images control their culture. Because white oppressive forces controls our media images is in fact, it allows them to negatively steer our culture without us even realizing it. And as I said, because we were stripped of our true identity and culture, we are therefore more susceptible to media social engineering. The ability of white social scientists and propagandists to steer the black culture through their monopoly over our media images is extremely powerful. So much, in fact, that if they wanted black youths to start walking around every day with a yellow afro comb in their left rear pockets, all they would have to do is place that image in several rap music videos, movies, and TV shows being depicted as very cool and trendy. In doing so, many black youths will begin imitating the style and behavior. Many will even insist that they created the style and behavior, although they have in fact not. The style and behavior was actually a learned behavior from how they saw themselves repeatedly depicted within the media. The hidden fact is that what millions of African Americans naively perceive as being their own swagger and style are actually the result of negative media social engineering created by white social scientists and white propagandists. When these white social scientists and propagandists create trends and customs for black youths to imitate, they deliberately create those that gets our black youths acting and dressing as caricatures that reinforces resentment and anti-black perceptions. Moreover, those images that reinforces many negative racist stereotypes about black people. Black youths become those caricatures of themselves that they've accepted. This negative media social engineering campaign is the true reason why millions of African Americans now call themselves niggers, thugs, bitches, and hoes, and sag their pants and glorify pimps. Again, media social engineering is not a silly conspiracy theory. It is a real, covert, very well-crafted system of control that allows the white ruling class to control the masses and targeted populations. It's the truth that they hide from us. They also use media social engineering to demoralize and divide black people. In 1968, white social scientists hired by the Kerner Commission determined that the unprecedented unified black protest during that era was caused by an elevated and unifying collective self-esteem brought on by the emergence of the Black Pride movement. They also determined that black people's collective aggressions against the white society had reached a boiling point within the collective minds of African Americans, which was also determined to be an aggravating core factor for that decade's unprecedented unified black protests. Those white social scientists largely determined that they could subdue unified black protests by deploying a propaganda campaign that keeps our collective self-esteem low and that keeps our collective aggression shifted from the white society and redirected against ourselves. It's the true reason why virtually all information that we receive about ourselves from the white sources are consistently negative. And it's also why they propagate the stories of black on black crime. It's to turn us against ourselves. The white media's unrelenting negative depiction of black people that amplifies the negative to the point that distorts our reality is much more than just biased media reporting. It's actually a black racially demoralizing, divide and conquer psychological warfare campaign. Demoralizing, divide, and conquer is a method of maintaining control over a targeted population through constant and unrelenting demoralization in order to create self-hate and division between them. It's a well-proven tactic that has been used for centuries by oppressors for controlling the oppressed. Because when the oppressed are demoralized, divided, and made self-loathing, this makes them much more easier to control. This is the true reason why many black people are now demoralized, divided, self-loathing, perceive ourselves as being our worst enemies, and reveres Caucasians in spite of such a brutally horrific history of oppression and discrimination. It's always by deliberate design whenever the oppressed starts thinking exactly as their oppressors wants them to think. This psychological warfare system is deployed like a massive media marketing campaign that constantly subjects black people to receiving only the fraudulent worst narratives about ourselves. People are easily controlled by the narratives that they routinely receive about themselves. It works upon the concept that the mind's perception can be altered by controlling the information given to it. When people constantly receive fraudulent negative information about themselves, this creates self-hatred and disunity, which attacks the core foundation of what bonds them as a people, and they then can be ruled over forever. It doesn't matter if the information presented is untrue. Most people will respond accordingly to the negative information because they've all been given the same information. Presently, all narratives about black people are written exclusively by white people. This unfair scenario allows white oppressive forces to easily negatively shape how black people perceive ourselves. Within this control system, fraudulent, black, racially demoralizing propaganda is being pumped unrelentingly into the unsuspecting minds of the black population without being challenged nor counterbalanced by an equal amount of black positive, racially affirming facts. It works upon the concept that the perception we can be controlled through demoralization. Its weapon is the message that it carries. It conveys a subliminal message that black people are our own worst enemies and that we therefore need whites to govern over our lives. Moreover, that black people should admire, respect, and trust only whites. This system is extremely effective because when black people are repeatedly presented these noted narratives from trusted white media sources, it can be very difficult to resist its implied propaganda programming, especially when the propaganda is being told daily and so unrelentingly. Its weapon is the demoralizing message that it carries and the way that it adversely affects the black population in terms of our behavior. With time, being unable to refute the constant negative information about themselves, many black people eventually comes to accept it. The constant taunting of negative propaganda unconsciously influence how many black people perceives our community, perceives ourselves, creating division and self-hatred among us. This system of control shifts black collective aggressions away from white oppressive society and redirects it towards ourselves. This is all possible because people are like computers. All you have to do is keep giving people certain information every so often, and you can persuade an entire generation towards an implied objective. And again, it doesn't matter if the information presented is untrue. Most black people will act upon it because they've all been given the same disinformation. This warfare tactic works by immense demoralization. It taps into the immense power that shame has upon the human mind to mentally enslave black people. Those black people who do not critically think never notices their mental change. This is our hidden reality. It has nothing to do with a fictional biblical fairy tale, no Willie Lynch. This is not some feeble-minded conspiracy theory. It's the damn truth that white oppressive forces don't want black people to ever learn, because it provides them with their greatest power over us. This psychological warfare system provides the white society with a more proficient method for controlling black people and subjugating black people. For unlike the past blatant racist systems that black people could easily identify and therefore develop counter strategies against, this system is not easily recognized nor easily comprehended by many of its black victims. This psychological warfare program works so well, in fact, that it not only makes black people more compliant with white dominance over our lives, it in fact, in many cases, causes black people to even prefer it. It is at the root of the profound self-hatred. You see, black people are always walking around speaking negatively about our race. We're constantly speaking negatively. That's not normal. It's because our collective aggressions have been shifted from the white society and redirected against ourselves. The oppressed will always believe the fraudulent worst about themselves. Franz Fanon said that, and our oppressors depends upon it. This disclosure is the truth. Don't dispute facts you don't understand for lies you were misled to believe. Doing so will keep you mentally enslaved by the white society. This disclosure is actually a very common hidden practice. Throughout history, those empires that were brutally oppressive, fearing an eventual retribution from the oppressed, have always manipulated the minds of the oppressed to think in ways that prevent them from unifying themselves and engage in massive acts of retribution against their oppressors. Because while brutal empires, through the weaponry advantage of guns and cannons, can invade, enslave, and brutalize the people for centuries, they, however, cannot win their loyalty or sustain peace with them indefinitely unless their minds have been manipulated to think in ways that prevents them from rebelling. Brutal empires never truly leave the oppressed to their own thinking, because it always leads to unified rebellion. Because whenever people are oppressed for long duration, their collective aggressions towards their oppressors will continue to grow until acts of massive rebellion becomes inevitable. This is an inherent response within the collective human psyche whenever people are held under long-term oppression. To prevent these acts from happening, the oppressors always manipulates the minds of the oppressed. Therefore, the perceptions held by the oppressed are never truly their own. They're always false perceptions beneficial to their oppressors that were shrewdly ingrained into the minds of the oppressed by their oppressors without them even realizing it. This is the hidden reality of what white oppressive forces have done to black people. To prevent acts of massive black rebellion, they exploit their monopoly over information that we receive to manipulate our minds to think in ways that benefits the white society. Come on, it's easy to see. In fact, it's only by not critically thinking that you can't see it. Critically think. Can you not see how cartoonishly unrealistic it actually is that virtually all information that we receive from the white society about us are consistently negative and demoralizing? Wake up. What oppressive forces have created a prison for our minds? I'm trying to free your mind, but I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it. The first step towards freeing your mind from white mental slavery begins with remembering that all narratives that we receive about ourselves and that our media of ourselves are controlled by our proven worst, notoriously deceitful enemies. Moreover, the white society has never earned the blind trust of black people. They've especially never earned the credibility to control what we believe about ourselves, because they've been telling lies about black people for more than 400 years. They've merely brainwashed many black people to forget these facts and to blindly trust them and to perceive ourselves as being our worst enemies. We must wake up to our reality. As long as you're believing that we're controlled by slave syndrome, you're making a damn fool of yourself. Willie Lynch does not exist. If you believe that we are the people of the Bible written by our enemies, because Deuteronomy 28 talks about the people who have been enslaved for 400 years, it's because you're ignorant. Because the anniversary of Africans in America, for the 400th anniversary, happened in 2019. So we have more than 400 years. If the Bible was true and it was talking about us, our exodus should have happened in 2019. It is time to stop believing in idiotic things. We have grown men, we have people with PhDs walking around believing dumb shit. Wake up and don't be fooled. If Caucasians were truly superior, they wouldn't have to distort so many facts, tell so many lies, and work so hard behind the scenes to handicap and subjugate people that they claim are inferior. It is time to wake up to our reality. The time of believing and think that insults are intelligent is over. If you are believing in those idiotic things, you should be a damn shame of yourself. If you believe that our plight is connected to a slave syndrome or the Bible, our ancestors weep for your broken mind. Wake up.